Hi, everybody. This is Crypto Rich, working with you to get rich with crypto, filling our pockets with crypto profits. I'm thrilled to have with me Gordon Dimmack. He is a commentator on British politics par excellence, or excellence, and he and I we've been on each other's channels before, right? And I reached out to him and thought, it's time to have a catch up. And this is going to be on my channel, bit.ly Crypto Rich Odyssey. I'm also going to be posting this on 3Speak. I'm not going to be posting this on YouTube, but Gordon might. And I'll have the links to his content below, and he'll have the links to my channels below his video.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
Ready to hop in the 6-4 and cruise around the blocks. There's a storm coming to the underworld and the heat is on. Take over the blocks and call the shots. It's time to hustle or get hustled. What's it gonna be? Stay sharp. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Don't let them catch you slipping. Only real gangsters thrive in the dope wars world.
Okay, hey Gordon, how you doing?
I'm good, Rich. How are you, mate?
I'm very, very well. I'm very, very well. At last we speak. It's been ages.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes. And I was saying before we started recording how my channel has changed since you and I, because we've done work together.
Yeah.
And it's been about crypto and stuff. But my channel's more about politics, macro politics, macroeconomics. Plus, I do crypto stuff, and there's a particular crypto ecosystem I've got into, which, as I was telling you before, has worked out very, very well. And for those of you who aren't familiar with crypto, just hold on. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the description below. Just very, very quickly, it's not a Ponzi, it's not a scam, it's less of a scam than fractional reserve banking. And there are scams in crypto, but there are scams in the legacy world, right? In the non-crypto financial world as well. Human beings being human beings everywhere. So anyway, I was saying to you that I got into a particular project and I got it for free.
Yeah.
Osmosis.
What's it called?
Osmosis. Yeah. So what happened was in March 2020, I bought some Atom. Atom is the cryptocurrency for the Cosmos project, and I bought it on a whim. Did no research whatsoever. I just thought, oh, I'll buy a few. I didn't put in any more than I was, willing to lose. Right. I didn't sell my children and the wife and the house and my underpants and everything. Right. Just a little bit. And then in June 2021, I got notification that everybody who held Atom, which pays interest, by the way, didn't pay a lot of interest, but I was collecting a little bit of interest just by holding it, was going to get some Osmo. Osmo is the token for osmosis.zone, and they were going to get it for free. It's called an airdrop. So, okay, I'm going to get this crypto for free. Let me take a look at this crypto. So I had a look at Osmosis, and what Osmosis is a decentralized exchange. So it's where people can buy and sell crypto, and it's decentralized. It's on the blockchain. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. This is a really, really great exchange. Because I've been covering crypto since 2017. I first bought Bitcoin in 2013. And for those that don't know, I actually work as a child protection social worker. That's what I'm qualified in, right? And that's what I'm doing currently part-time as well as my channel.
Not all superheroes wear capes, people.
No. Oh my God.
Carry on, Rich, sorry.
Oh my God, okay. Anyway, so Osmo was paying 500% APR rewards just for holding it in the wallet. And the rewards were being paid out daily. So I was compounding like crazy. Crazy. 2.5% per day I'm getting. I'm compounding like crazy. Now, there's no referral link. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's the way the algorithm is designed. And slowly over time, the interest rate has gone down. And I think now it's in its mid-20s. But so I got Osmo. By the way, feel free to interrupt me as I'm called.
That's all right. I'm interested. I'm listening.
So because I had Atom, I got Osmo airdropped. But then because I had Osmo airdropped, I got Juno airdropped to me. So I'm now compounding Juno like crazy, right? And then because I had Juno and Osmo and Atom, I got Chihuahua airdropped, right?
Now, so you're getting all these cryptocurrencies because you got Atom originally.
Because this is how this ecosystem is growing. Because it used to be people would say, do a white paper, maybe have an MVP, maybe just have some promises. Here, I'm going to build this, send us your Bitcoin or your Ethereum, and then we'll build it. And then there were lots and lots of scams. There were lots and lots of shams, like projects that failed. And there are other projects that are still building, but they've not necessarily given a return on what people have put on their people's investment. The Cosmos ecosystem is growing by airdrops. So I hold Osmo, it's a proof of stake coin. And what that means is I hold it in my wallet and I get interest just for holding it in my wallet on a regular basis. And then I get airdrops. And then the market decides what value those tokens will have by people buying and selling it. Don't want this one, the price dumps, right? People want this one, they want this one, the price goes up. So Juno Chain is a smart contract platform. You can build applications on it like Ethereum, if people know a little bit about it, programmable money. But Chihuahua Chain is a coin with a dog's face on it.
Very well, that's important. Like people are just going to buy that because of Doggy Coin and
that's right, Dogecoin and Shiba Inu. It's a meme coin. Right?
I think I've got Shiba Inu somewhere.
But Dogecoin was paying 3,000% APR when it first launched. So I am compounding it like crazy, and then the interest rate really, really slowly goes down. But because I had Chihuahua Chain, and I had Juno Chain, and I had Osmo and Atom, I got Cerebus. Now, Cerebus makes up for the deficiencies in Dogecoin and Shiba Inu and Chihuahua Chain, because Cerebus is a coin with 3 dogs' heads in it. So it's gone on like this, and there are other projects that have been launching airdrops to the point. There's 229 Atom that I bought in March 2020. April and June of this year, I was able to take out enough from that ecosystem to pay off our mortgage. And
wow.
There is no way, Gordon, for me as a child protection social worker,
of course not,
ever afforded to pay off our mortgage. Because also, I don't think we've ever talked about this, my children have never gone to school. They're home educated. So
that's interesting to me, that is, Rich. Why are you doing that? Because I haven't got kids. I'm sorry to stop you.
Yeah.
But we haven't got kids, my wife and I, but we have said if ever we had kids, we would homeschool them.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's almost like it's not an education anymore you're getting from the state, it's an indoctrination. Is that the same sort of reason why you're doing it? Can I come to that in a second?
Can I come to that in a second?
Yeah, carry on, mate. Sorry to interrupt.
So I've done a series of videos on my channel, my Odyssey channel, 3 videos about home education. But anyway, but the crypto, there's no way, because we're a single income family. Now, my son is 18 now. So, he's doing his own thing. He's at college because he wanted to go to college. I didn't want him to go. He got into the Osmo ecosystem a month after me because I said, let me check it out. He bought Bitcoin when he was 11. And that's one of the benefits of being home educated. Yeah. Not that you get Bitcoin, but you learn all sorts of stuff that school doesn't teach you, right? He was at one point making $100 a week from his cryptocurrency holdings in Osmo, in addition to his part-time job at McDonald's. There was one airdrop he got where in 2 weeks he got $800. He's 17. He's absolutely balling it, isn't he, as they would say? He's doing really well. Do you know what he did the other day? He's so cute, right? He was showing his bank balance to his 14-year-old sister. Look what I got! Look what I got! And I said, look at you, you're 18, showing up to what you're a working man.
Oh, I can't imagine what I would be like at that age in that position. I would be an absolute nightmare, I think.
I can come to that in a second, right? So look, if people want to know more about cryptocurrencies and stuff, I do invite you to go and, go to Odyssey, go to 3Speak, go to YouTube if you have to, go do your own due diligence, go check it out. If you're interested in the Cosmos ecosystem, and, please do check out my channel because I do cover it quite a bit. And it's still growing and growing. And I'm now in the fortunate position, Gordon, where I no longer do social work for money.
That's a wonderful position to be in. And
it's great.
It's fantastic because you don't do what you're doing for money, Rich, do you? I mean,
I need the money.
You need the money, obviously, but that's not why you do it. You do it to give back and to be a positive
influence in
society and a labour of love. Exactly. and of course you don't get paid doing it. It's an essential job. It's an essential worker. So
yeah, no, I do get paid. I don't get paid a lot, which I think is to do with the union power, right? No one cares if social workers go on strike, right? If teachers go on strike and police, then people do care. The middle classes care, right? So, I invite people to go do their own due diligence, put aside any preconceptions you had. And I do get paid as a social worker, and I do want the money because it means I don't have to cash in my crypto. There's that, right? But it's not like, oh my God, I'm desperate. I'm mortgage free now. Yeah, and that wasn't going to happen. Okay, home education.
Yeah.
You ready to move on to that?
Yeah, sure. I do. What made you decide to home educate the kids?
It was about 18 years ago. Another social worker just mentioned it to me, and I didn't know anything about it. And I started looking into it. What is it? How does it work? And it blew my mind. And one of the things that I began to ask myself, I'm from Pakistan. Who brought schools to British India? And why? Why did the British bring schools to India? Because they wanted to have an educated populace to lord over? No, this is what school is, right? This is what school is. And this is what the British used it for. And it's always been like this, pretty much. Listen to us. We are your lords and masters. Don't listen to your parents, listen to us. Follow our gods, not your gods, and do as you're told.
Indoctrination rather than education. That's the reason that we would do the same thing. And we had a conversation about it, and we would obviously. I mean, there's obviously the after school things. You have to make sure your kids have got an active social life and all that sort of thing. And I assume that there was lots of extracurricular activities that your kids did as a result of that, just to make sure they're not weird around other kids, But we definitely. I don't think we'd put them through the school system. I don't think we would. And I've got a feeling that we'd do a much better job than sending them off to these schools to be mass educated and mass indoctrinated into a way of thinking. A lot of the things that they teach these kids are just wrong. And I would definitely homeschool if I had kids, but I don't. So
when you do, we didn't homeschool them. We didn't do school at home. We didn't do project-based learning. We did unschooling.
How do you mean by unschooling?
Oh, the ideal childhood. My children had a lifetime, a whole childhood of play. It's all they did. They played and played and played and played and played. My son, horse riding, ice skating. He did ballet till he was 14 because he wanted to. Skateboarding, Minecraft, hanging out with his mates. Just play. Lego when they were younger, sword fighting. Play and play and play. No lessons. We did read to them regularly, and they loved it. They loved it, loved it, loved it. Loved being read to, cuddle up at night or even during the day. If they're playing Lego when they were little, and I sit on the sofa and I get out a book for me to read, they're clambering over me, bringing me their books for me to read to them.
What a wonderful family life.
You remember when you and I were kids and what summer holidays were like?
Yeah.
That's their entire childhood of one long, minus the weather, right? They had to go through the seasonal changes, right? And my son learned to read when he was 8. He said, "Mummy, I want to learn how to read."
8?
Yeah, we didn't push him. The trick is wait till the child is ready and then move quickly. So he said, "Mummy, I'm ready to learn how to read." So my wife said, "Okay, well, let's ring up a couple of your dad's friends who are teachers and find out what they say." So my son, 8 years old, rang up my mate, Graham. "Graham, I want to learn how to read. What do I need to do?" And Graham said, "Okay, we'll make a timetable. Practice with your parents. Choose a book you love to practice with." So my son chose Rudyard Kipling's original Jungle Book.
Okay.
One is I refuse to read Disney novels to them. I said, I'm not reading, and TV tie-ins, I'm not reading that rubbish to you. You want Jungle Book? I'll read the original.
Okay.
Right? You want Cinderella? I'll read Grimm's Fairy Tales or Beauty and the Beast, whichever one it was, right? So he and I'd already read Jungle Book to him twice, curled up in bed.
Yeah.
Such a fabulous story. We'd finish a chapter saying, it's bedtime. Come on, there's one more.
Okay,
then, right? Because it's that sort of unputdownable book, but it's small text and words like thee and thou and thick, dense words and stuff. But that's what he wanted. So he starts off like that, like any book, right? 15 minutes a day, every day for 3 weeks, done. Never needed another lesson ever again.
Fantastic.
So there's less than 6-7 hours in total, and he's now a self-improving reader.
We need to learn from that in other areas of just doing things, to try and tie what you're talking about there into, like, politics and the economy. This is kind of what you're allowing things to grow naturally and organically, aren't you? And the learning to happen organically and naturally, and you're supporting innovation almost in the child. Do you know what I mean? And you're supporting them being innovative. And the country that I can think that does this most with their populace is China. China have a way of doing things where, if you listen to Richard Wolff, he'll talk about this endlessly. But they have a way of doing things where they will give certain areas, certain, states, whatever it is inside the country, a certain amount of money and say, we have the problem, we need this to happen, go off and do your best. And each state will do things a totally different way to each other. Some will crash and burn, and the money will be wasted, but others will be extremely innovative in a way of doing things that nobody would have thought of, and then the rest of the country sort of adopts that as the way of doing things. And also there are other sort of disasters where it goes totally wrong, but then it's an experiment that you do, and somehow it fixes another problem that you've got in the system. You're sort of encouraging that in a child, the way you're doing things. And if we could extrapolate that out and do it on a national basis, then I really do feel as that is the way forward. This indoctrination has got to stop, because even though you've got indoctrination right now, nobody knows what the truth is. No. You've got this indoctrination to say, oh, yeah, you will think this way and this is the truth. Nobody, you go and ask 5 different people, what they think about the moon landing, they'll give you 5 different answers. And the same if you ask them about Princess Di or 9/11 or any of the other things. So you're not going to stop conspiracy theories or anything like that. But you can certainly extrapolate what you've done out there with the kids. It's a fascinating way of bringing up your child. And I applaud you for it.
Look, there is so much more to it. See, as a social worker, I've come across the worst kind of parenting imaginable. Make your heart weep. As a home educating parent and seeing other home educating parents and stuff, it's just extraordinary. And what you say, what you're pointing to is creativity. How home education allows creativity to flourish. And what people don't know, and when I was researching this, I would ask teachers, friends of mine or teachers I met as a social worker, what's the history of schooling? They don't know. Nobody knows.
No.
Right?
They don't realise the colonialism and that aspect of it.
But it was before that. Prussia was resource poor. The only way of making money was through imperial conquest. Prussia's army got defeated in 1806 by Napoleon. A philosopher, Johann Fichte, lobbied the Prussian royal family to set up schools. He said, if we remove children from their parents at a young enough age and have them trained to participate in activities that have no meaning for them, we can train them in obedience, compliance, and conformity to listen to state-appointed agents and follow their orders. So they instituted that system. That gave rise to the highly disciplined Prussian army that routed Napoleon's troops some 20 years later or so. Industrialists in Britain and France and the US, oh my God, they came to Prussia to investigate this system. They said, okay, we will bring this back to our nations to train people like Gordon. Don't you be having an independent livelihood. You're going to come and work in my factory.
Yeah.
12 hours a day, 6 days a week, making widgets, and I'll give you some tokens, not crypto, and then you can use that to buy bread instead of growing your own bread. And at the same time, what they also did was they killed off competition and creativity. So schooling was brought about by monopoly capitalism. And, then it's rolled out, and the imperialists thought, okay, well, this is how we can train our colonial subjects to follow our gods and stuff. And then people think it's education. No, it's schooling. You know, if you look at your experience of life right now, all the stuff that you study, that you research, that you talk about, that you look into, you're self-taught.
Yeah, and I didn't learn what I learned. I didn't learn it in school. In fact, if you actually look at what I learned at school, those skills I learned at school are hardly applicable to anything that I do in life, and I have done since I've left.
Well, that's critical to school. Supposing you're religious, right? You may or may not be, right? But let's say you're not. Okay, but let's say you're really, really religious, and I'm your instructor. I'm going to say, Gordon, I want you to go and pray now, and you go and do that. Well, how do I know you're praying because you're being obedient, or you're praying because it has value for you? Well, the only way to test for obedience, is to have you engage in activities that have no meaning or relevance to your life. So, Gordon, I don't want you to learn how to change a car tire. I'm not going to teach you that. I'm not going to teach you how to fix a puncture on a bicycle, or how to balance, or how money works. I want you to learn 1066.
Yeah.
Dates of the kings and queens of England. It has no bearing to life.
No.
So what happens with unschooling, because you and I are unschooled as adults.
Okay. I see what you mean now.
That's what we're doing. We're learning the stuff that we're interested in. As we're dealing with life, we're learning about life as we're engaging.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Since I've started doing this, I've been doing this about 6 years. Because when 2016 happened and we voted for Brexit, didn't we? We had the whole Brexit thing, and then a couple of months later, there was the whole 2016 election. And Trump broke the media, basically. The media was already pretty much broken with Brexit and the way that they turned that whole... I mean, it was a huge decision, and they turned it into a series of sound bites and slogans on the side of a bus. It was just pathetic. It really was. The way they were treating the population. It was like they were talking to children, like 5-year-olds. And then over in America, when Trump won the election, it broke the media. I remember watching the media in the run-up to the 2016 election. I was fascinated. I didn't really know much about the state of politics in the world, or what was going on, or anything really. But when he won, I realized, something seriously wrong with our media here. I'd always knew that the media were liars. I always knew that they would lie to cover up for power. But it wasn't until 2016 that I realized just how bad it must be. Because for them to be basically saying that it was an absolute nailed-on certainty that Clinton was going to win, and there was nothing that Trump could do to win. But then I had friends in America who I spoke to who went, Gordon, nobody I speak to is going to vote for Hillary.
Yeah.
They're like, honestly, we don't know anybody in our whole sphere that will vote Democrat. And then he won. And that's when I realized the media are lying to us in a massive way to try and manipulate things. And that's when I started, the first thing I started looking into was the Seth Rich thing. Because obviously, and that's sort of how I educated myself, and sort of how I became aware of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. But the point I'm trying to make is, in the 6 years since then, I have learned more than I did in the previous 42 years in my life.
Yeah. By
a massive amount, and certainly a factor of 10 more than anything I learned at school.
Yeah, you're an autodidact. It's autodidactic education, unschooling. You're learning what you're interested in as and when you're interested in it as you engage with life.
It's dangerous to the state.
Yes.
Thinking this way.
It is dangerous.
There's a reason. We were talking before we came on air about my channel and my little YouTube channel. I was doing great on YouTube. I was growing really fast. I was growing 3,000 subscribers in a month, and I got to 18,000 subscribers. And then I had the letter from Julian Assange after he was thrown in Belmarsh. And I think I was the first person, I think I read out the first words anybody had heard from him or publicly from him since he was put in Belmarsh and dragged out of his. So, and the reason I went public with that was because they slammed these extra 17 charges on him by the Espionage Act, trying to make him out to be some sort of hacker, which is ridiculous. Since I went public, the day I went public with that, I had 18,100 subscribers, and I haven't added a single subscriber since. They've literally just turned my channel off. That's not because of anything that I'm doing wrong. That's because of everything I'm doing right that is a threat to the state and its power. And this is why, there's going to be pushback from the state against the sort of stuff that you do with your kids and the way you educate people and the way I've educated myself over the last 6 years. My missus says this, Rich. She says, the internet, the invention of the internet it's like the genie was out the bottle. All of a sudden, all the secrets and all the stuff that used to be conspiracy theory is now just out in the open. I mean, it used to be a conspiracy theory that Operation Mockingbird was a thing and the CIA had infiltrated the media in the 80s with Operation Mockingbird or in the 70s, and they'd influenced the media, and you got CIA agents and the media. Now they're literally the talking heads in front of you. They're the people who are giving the American people direct bullshit from the CIA, and it's on TV and it's in your face now. Everything that used to be, hushed in the shadows, the internet, all of that information's out. And my missus says they can't put the genie back in the bottle now. They can't get that genie back in. There's too much information out there. So what have they done? Well, they've just put so much bullshit out in the last 6 years that so many people now don't know what's true. And the only way you can figure out really sort of which direction is vaguely true is if you're paying absolute 100% attention to about 8 different things. It's very difficult.
And that's great. I think, and going to lots and lots of different sources.
Yes, I listen to. I've got so many different. I've got sources that I read that people will be like, "Really, you do? You go there?" I'm like, "Yes, I go there."
It's so great. Do you know why? I kind of liken it to what I do as a child protection social worker, right? So I get a call from a school. Something's going on in this house. Can you go and check it out? We're worried about these kids. So I call the parents and I go and make a visit, right? And of course, they're going to say, "Look, we're not doing anything. Our kids are doing well." If their kids are doing well, they're going to say that. If their kids are being abused or neglected, they're still going to say that. Right? Yes. So I've got to look at it from the parent, the mum's perspective, the dad's perspective. I got to look at it from the children's perspective, and the children, one of them might be 3 years old. How do I look at does a 3-year-old make comprehension of the world, right? And then I got to look at it from what the GP says and the health visitor says and the school says, and if the police have any information, right? All these different places are looking, and then tying it all together. So if I think about say the lockdown and the COVID and the injections and everything, right? So there's one hand, there's what the mainstream media is saying and what the governments are saying. Then there's also my own experience as a Pakistani Briton, as a, with the legacy of empire, because that was also my thinking, the fact that my parents were both homeopaths.
They really struggled, didn't they, with people of colour getting them vaccinated because of the history. They really struggled convincing. I remember Lenny Henry and one of the other, I've forgotten his name now, but they did a video like saying there's no pork in it or anything like that. You could really see they were struggling to convince people of colour that this vaccination was safe.
Yeah.
And well,
I'll just come to that in a second.
Carry on.
But I went to Pakistan in June for the first time since October 2019. And I was talking to an aunt and a cousin and stuff about it. And they said, we didn't want it. There it was draconian. You got your ID card, your mobile phone shut off if you didn't get injection. You couldn't buy petrol because you had to show your ID card, and that showed whether you'd been injected or not. They already got biometric IDs in Pakistan, right? And they said, we didn't want it. We don't trust Western corporations. We don't trust Western companies and governments. We didn't want it. We didn't want it. We don't trust them. We don't trust them. And why they don't trust them is because of the history, from back to the Dutch East India Company and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's all these different, and then there's what the Guardian's saying, and then there's these doctors that are being censored, what they're saying, and then there's the psychics and stuff, because I even went there, what they're saying, and looking at it from all these sorts of different angles, and then working it out for myself, and then what's being censored. Censorship for me is a big, big tell. They don't want us to know this, or it's obscured or hidden from our view. Like it's either omitted completely, or it's smeared.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way I have this rule of thumb now, and perhaps you've got it in a way as well. You can adopt it, Gordon. You're welcome to have it, right? If the mainstream media smears this person, I want to listen to them.
You need to listen to what that person is saying.
Because they give Blair a platform, and they smear Corbyn as an anti-Semite.
I remember they did a video a while ago. What was it? Somebody did a report, and it was where was it? I think it was in the Guardian. It was, and it spread out to the other news agents and agencies, and it was a few years ago. This was, and they were showing sort of like the Twitter sphere as to which accounts were the biggest spreaders of stuff about Russiagate. And obviously, the more action the account was getting, it was a bigger spot on the graph, and all the graphs pointed out. And it was like fantastic. I mean, this was a smear job that they were doing. But as a result of it, I found people like Mohammed El-Mazi, who now is one of my friends, and I found people like Craig Murray. It was like they gave me a blueprint as to who I needed to get my information from. It was like, this is fantastic. You really screwed the pooch with that attack, didn't you? These the smear jobs now, they have the opposite effect. If they start smearing people, the people are like cottoning onto that.
Yeah, that's very good, right? So I'm going to say a few things that people may find controversial, right? And and like you, I think you and I, maybe it doesn't apply like it used to, right? We locate ourselves on the left wing, right? But I would say more like, but
I don't like
anymore. It's more about libertarianism, people having freedom and autonomy and agency, and anti-authoritarianism.
Here's the thing about this left-right thing, Rich. And if you don't mind, I want to have a chat about this, because it's really important, this is, I think, because most people have this sort of left-right spectrum in their minds, right, as to who is left and who is right. Well, I feel as if the whole left-right thing is sort of like a prism that the powers that be get us to look through to warp reality so they can then keep us all divided and fighting about bullshit. Because if you actually look at Americans, let's take Americans. What do they agree on? Probably, no matter whether they're a Trump supporter or a Bernie Sanders supporter or whatever, they probably agree on 95% of the shit, of everything. If they talk to each other about everything, they would agree about 95%. Well, they would disagree maybe about guns. They would disagree maybe about
abortion,
birthing rights and abortion, and they would disagree about maybe one of the other things that they always prop up anyway. You see my point? And that's, they use those things even though they're way down the list of really what's important in life. What's important? Well, it's health, it's education, it's family, it's it's all those other things that neither of these parties are giving them. By the way, 95% they'll agree about that. They want these. They need education. They'll agree that an end to the wars. They'll agree, stop printing money and send it to Ukraine. They'll agree, these weapons, the military-industrial complex needs to get reined in. Everybody agrees on these things, but none of it's happening. Why? Because everything is being concentrated on that 5% that they do disagree on to keep people divided. And now you've got a situation in America where it's been skewed so much, this left-right spectrum is, that Joe Biden is some sort of, they're calling him a radical lefty. And they're doing this on the news. Now, politics in America. You tell me, Rich, I said this on my TikTok the other day, and people in America went, no way. Joe Biden, if you went policy for him and put him on that political spectrum, he would basically be a centre-right authoritarian somewhere near Margaret Thatcher. Correct?
I think he's a bit more statist, or he'd like to be more statist, but the US constitution and government structure makes it difficult, right? But I do get what you're saying, right? Because I grew up as a left-wing politics, but it kind of doesn't fit anymore because I voted Brexit. So then my left-wing friends are like, "Oh my God, you voted Brexit? That you're some kind of rabid racist."
I get that as well.
Yeah, like you and I, we're mates with UKIP and the BNP because we voted Brexit, apparently, right? And
I didn't. That's the thing. I didn't vote Brexit. I voted Remain.
Sorry,
I voted Remain.
Okay.
Now, but the thing is, now my friends who are on, my friends who are sort of progressive, who were for Brexit, hear that I voted Remain, and they go, "What?" That, you start hearing me out. You didn't hear the reason why I voted Remain. I actually voted Remain for a reason that turned out to be true.
Yeah.
And sorry, carry on, mate. I stopped you.
It's all right. No, it's all right. Okay. Well, the point that I'm clumsily making is I'm agreeing with you that the left-right, that simple sort of split doesn't apply anymore.
We haven't got a left anymore. We haven't got a left-wing party. That's right. We've got two right-wing authoritarian, pro-war, anti-worker parties. That's what we've got. We've got the same thing as they've got in America. Tony Benn said the aim, it seems, of the Labour Party was to be turned into the UK's version of the DNC. And honestly, that's what I can see now with this urge of anybody on the left in their party.
I would take it further. Certainly in the UK, we don't have a conservative party. I pray, like, oh my God, I so wish we had traditional conservative parties, so much better than this WEF party that we have. We have the WEF party on the right. Well, the Tories, right? The fake Tories, as David Curtin, the Heritage Party, calls them, and the fake Labour, which is also a WEF party.
Which is basically a centre-right, authoritarian, pro-war, anti-Labour party. It's
anti-human party, I'd say.
Yeah.
Right? Anti-human. We talk about home education, right? The schools bill. This is going through Parliament now, and I did a video about this, about some of this proposals. It would mean that if it becomes law, if I don't register my daughter with the local authority that she's being home educated, I've got 15 days to respond, or I'll get a school attendance order, a compulsory order for her to go to school, regardless of whether or not it's good for her, regardless of whether or not the quality of education she's getting at home is working for her or not. If I refuse to send her to school, I get a fine. If I refuse to pay the fine, I get a prison sentence up to a year. If I serve that sentence and I come out and I still refuse to send her, I can go to prison again.
So what sort of hoops do you have to jump through if you want to homeschool your kids then? Do the state make you sign all sorts of forms, and is there any tests that
I'll come to that in a second, right? I'll come to the point that I'm making, and I will say that, right? Address that. That's not a Tory policy.
No.
That's the state getting into the ins and outs of family life. That's not conservatism. Wait a minute, because traditional Tory values are all about the family. And
hands off and letting people...
Hands off, that's right. And I know as a child protection social worker, there's already enough in place to protect children. There really is. Don't need any more powers, right? So things like that. And then to answer your question, currently, and long may it remain so, I hope this fails, because of the economic crash that's bearing down on us.
Imminent. Any second now.
Right? Bitcoin, gold, silver, pirate chain, go get some. Food supplies, go get some. The law is that in the UK, in England and Northern Ireland, and I think also in Wales, is that it's the parents' duty to educate their children either by regular attendance at school or otherwise.
Okay.
I'm doing otherwise. There's no requirement to have any sort of curriculum. There's no testing. There's no standards that they have to meet. It really is, for me as the father and in partnership with my wife, the mother, to work out how we're going to take care of our kids.
Rich, you could have given me 100 guesses as to that being the case, and I wouldn't have guessed that we would be as hands-off as that in this country, and the state would be so hands-off. So there's literally nobody who comes out to check that they can read or anything like that. There's no testing.
Nothing. My local authority know about my son because he had an injury when he was young and he went to hospital and they asked and we said he's home educated because we're not hiding it.
Yeah.
And they told the local education authority. They don't know about my daughter. There's no requirement for them to know. It's none of their damn business. I don't tell the local authority, hey, listen, I'm dressing my daughter this way, or that she doesn't eat pork. None of their damn business.
Yeah.
Right? And then the local authority contacted me and said, we understand you're home educating your son. We'd like to come and see you and see him. And I said, no, you're all right.
And what happened then?
Well, then I gave him a report. I said, look, this is why we're home educating. It's called a philosophy of education. Yeah. This is what we're doing. This is what he does. Off you go. There you go. And then they said, okay, well, thanks very much. We'll check again in a year. So they asked again in a year. We'd like to come. Okay. And I said, no, you're all right. And at one point they said, look, the director of children's services has asked us to meet all home educated children. And I said, okay, do you have any concerns about the educational provision or the welfare of my child? They said no. And I said, we don't want to meet you. And that was it. I actually said to them, look, it's my job to protect my child from the intrusions of strangers. So, no, you're all right.
That's incredible. I wouldn't have thought that this country was so hands off.
Fabulous, and it's so funny.
That's it. I totally. I would definitely be doing that for sure if I had kids.
In Scotland, the difference is if your children have never been to school, you don't need to tell anybody. If they have been to school, you've got to get the local authorities' agreement to deregister them. If your children are going to school in England and Wales, all you got to do is you got to let the local authority know that please take my child off roll, and that's it.
So if I think back to my school days, me going to school held me back. Yeah. Because by the time I got to, and this is not to toot my own horn or anything like that, it's just I'm naturally curious. I ask questions about things. I naturally want to learn, especially if it interests me. If something interests me, I start to learn it. And when I was a kid, by the time I got to school, I could count to 100 in French. I could read. I could write. You know, none of the other kids could. And it's like I then, for the next 2 years, almost had to slow down my learning because the other kids had to catch up.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I wasn't smart. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm just not. But I had a home life where learning was promoted, and I had a sister and a mother that really looked after me with regards to my curiosity and promoted that. And then, the school system kind of slow. I mean, there was a stage at school where I didn't go for about a year. It was almost a year I didn't go. I'd go in the morning, I would sign in on the register, and then I would hop the fence, pick up my dog and go to the park, and then take my dog home at lunchtime, and then go back in on an afternoon, sign the register again, yes, sir, I'm here, and jump over the fence and do the same thing on the afternoon. I didn't go because I was bullied at school terribly. Yeah. You know, there was about an 8-month period where I didn't go to school. In the end, they cottoned onto what was happening, that I was just signing in the register and I wasn't going to any lessons. And, you know, that's when I told my parents, my mom, I'm being bullied and this is why, etc. And then they had to do, because it was different back then when we were kids, Rich. It's like, you know, they haven't got the anti-bullying ethos. If you were bullied at school, you had to keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, you were going to get your head kicked in for grassing on somebody, you know? So yeah, school sort of held me back. If I look back on it, I would say, yeah, it held me back. And I left with hardly any qualifications, really.
It holds everybody back because it's not designed to educate. You know, what I'd be interested in for people who are watching this, you know, give us your stories about what it was like for you at school.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, put them in the comments. I had a great time at high school. Really, really enjoyed it. But I messed about loads, and I was smart. And I just want to address that notion you got that you're not smart or whatever, right? I remember reading this book in my English GCSE O-level class, and it was just such a boring book. And at weekends, I'm devouring Joseph Heller novels. All by I remember reading Good as Gold, where I started on the Friday evening and finished it by Sunday evening, did nothing else that weekend. And I go to school and I got to read this rubbish, right? So school is not designed to educate, it's designed to school. And I invite people to go check out any of the work by John Taylor Gatto, Gatto. He won New York City Teacher of the Year 3 times in a row, New York State Teacher of the Year once, maybe twice, passionate advocate for alternative forms of education. He wrote an essay, The 7 Lessons School Teacher. I read that and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. This was a speech that he gave to accept a prize as Teacher of the Year.
Okay.
And he said, I don't educate, I teach school, and it's not the same. And he said, these are the 7 lessons. If I can remember, one of the lessons I teach is provision of self-esteem, that how much you're valued depends upon the numbers of stars or crosses or ticks that you get. I teach surveillance, you're always being watched. I teach confusion, because I teach all sorts of things that are disconnected and they have no bearing or relevance to your life. And there's something in there that I teach you what your position in life is. So the idea, so exams and tests are complete bunkum, absolute bunkum. But what it does, it tells us where we are in life, how good we are, how obedient we are. It's like, teaching a dog tricks, and if the dog does the trick well, you get a treat. Well, the treat for children is an A grade.
Yeah, that's the word, obedience.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with curiosity, with intelligence, with the acquisition of knowledge, with being able to, I suppose, say intelligence is like, this is life, this is me. Do I have the capacity and the skills to deal with life as it comes at me? And if it doesn't, can I then develop the capacity and skills?
Mm-hmm.
So, my children, that's all they did. They're dealing with life as life comes at them with what's important to them and what they value. And along the way, they learn maths and reading and stuff. So, we were denied that opportunity. I bet those 8 months, right? Yeah, you were bullied, and that's terrible. And I can talk about bullying in what happens with home education and bullying, right? But those 8 months, I like to think they were your salvation.
I loved it. I loved
must have really loved
it. I loved it because my granddad had just died. I was like 13, and I grew up without a father.
Yeah.
My dad left when I was he was kicked out when I was very young. And my granddad sort of like, he was my father figure in my life. And when he died when I was like 13, 14, and I was being bullied terribly as well, I just went off the rails. I really just, I was in a severe depression, and that's the part of school I remember that I enjoyed the most. Spending it with my dog over the park when everybody else was learning some god awful language that I had no intention of. It was like, why do I have to take a foreign language? Yeah, you literally had to take a foreign language at school.
Whether or not,
why?
Instead of pursuing something that you're interested in.
Exactly.
So my son, I'm so proud of my children, by the way. My son, when he was 12, my wife is Scottish Christian. I'm Pakistani Muslim, right? My son, and we live in an area where there isn't any sizable Chinese community, which is relevant. And he's 12. He comes up to us and says, I want to learn Mandarin.
Well, that's brilliant. So they didn't give me that choice at school. If they gave me Mandarin, I'd probably go, yeah, I'll learn that.
Yeah, but we said to him, okay, why do you want to learn Mandarin? And he said, well, more people speak Mandarin than any other language in the world, and China's a growing economic power. I think it would be useful for me.
Smart. How old was he when that happened?
12. It's like, we had no idea. So then my wife found a native language Mandarin tutor in our city. He went for 5 years of his own volition, loved it, because he wanted to go. And then sometimes I'd walk into his room, right? He's 15 years old. You know what 15-year-old boys are like, right? I'd walk into his room. He's on YouTube. I'm like, oh, God, what's he watching? Some documentary about life in 15th century Mali. Because he's interested.
Definitely your son, mate. That's for sure.
Well, he knows more about 15th century Mali than I do, right? But he's dealing with what interests him. And that's the thing about home education. You've got to give children the space to be themselves, to discover who they are, to be creative, and direct them towards resources of what they're interested in. And the thing about the space to discover themselves, school denies us that. You know, I can remember my daughter when she was maybe 8, 9 years old, sitting in the garden on a warm summer's day, cross-legged, staring at the grass and the daisies just in front of her, just looking down, staring at them. I have no idea what was going on with her. No idea. But there was something going on that she was engrossed in, something she was working out or imagining or creating. And then also when my son was 5 or 6 or something, he was sitting doing quietly. I wasn't witness to this, right? And my wife said to him, "Are you okay?" Because, "Yes, Mummy, I'm just having a big think." but it's in those big thinks that we discover who we are. We traverse the contours of our being. And school denies us that. The other thing that school denies us that my children have is they're responsible for their day-to-day lives. Yeah, we have rules and regulations and vague sort of bedtimes and dinner and stuff and certain chores they got to do, right? But pretty much their day is their own. It's not like they get up when they want.
Well, isn't your job as a parent, your primary job as a parent, is to teach your kids stuff, or to sort of nurture your kids to the point where they don't need you anymore?
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty much your job as a parent?
Yeah, that's valid. I've never thought of it that way. I think of it as training them to engage in life.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want for them is to be successful and happy. And my kids, I mean, can you imagine a lifetime, a whole childhood of summer holidays?
I envy them. I do.
envy them too,
I
right?
kind of
Oh
like
my
when
God,
you're talking to me about it, and I kind of, especially with the you know, everybody's got a sob story, haven't they? But you know, especially with my you know, thoughts of how my childhood was, especially my secondary education.
Yeah.
My secondary education was just awful. The whole experience was horrible for me. And I look at you, you know, I listen to you talk about your kids, and I'm genuinely jealous.
I am. They're so happy. Was it December the 26th, the day after Christmas, a few years ago? We're staying in London with my sister-in-law. The 4 of us, we get a taxi to Heathrow Airport. We then get a flight to Singapore. We meet up with a friend of ours in Singapore for a day or so. We then fly to Auckland. We're in Auckland for 3 weeks with another good friend of ours, traveling around. We're then in Melbourne for 2 weeks with another friend of ours, traveling around. Right? Then back to Singapore. We meet up our friend again. Then back to the UK. 6 weeks while all the other kids are at school. Kids, we ain't going to read about kangaroos in a book. We're going to go and see the kangaroos. Them, yeah. Right? And then, but the thing about, they get to be responsible for their whole day. It's your day, Gordon. You create your day. Well, my kids got to practice that pretty much from, you know, as soon as they could walk and talk and stuff like that. And a lot of the time when they were young, they just wanted to be around us. But then as they slowly move out of the attachment phase and get more confident and more certain of themselves, they go exploring and inventing things for themselves. And it used to happen very occasionally, very, very occasionally. They'd say to me, "Abu, I'm bored." And I'd be like, "Yeah? What are you telling me for? It's your day."
That's your fault then, isn't it?
Yeah. Go and create something. I'm not my job to entertain you.
Yeah, when you said your son didn't learn to read until he was 8, I was like taken aback by that. But when you think about it, like, why does he need to read before that?
Well, he doesn't need to read until he wants to read, really.
Exactly.
My daughter learnt later.
Yeah, the whole point of me with the whole why did we have to take a language in high school wasn't because I didn't want to learn the language. I didn't want to, or I didn't ever want to learn another language, because I have done since I left school. Yeah. But I didn't want to be forced to take it at that time. Why did you force us to take 2 years of another language? It made no sense to me, especially when I learned conversational Spanish in about 26 hours or something like that, if you just get the right tapes.
The job of school is designed to kill creativity. School is designed to kill people's love of learning.
Pink Floyd really were right, weren't they? Pink Floyd, yeah, another brick in the wall. We don't need your education.
That's right. School is designed to train you in conformity, obedience, and compliance. Be like everybody else. Do as you're told without complaint.
But right? And look where that's got us, Rich. Look at the situation we're in at the moment.
Yeah, but hold on, Gordon. You're being a bit selfish here. Think of the elites. Think how
they're obviously they've done very well.
Yeah, because it's designed for them by them, not for us.
You're right. I'm being totally selfish to think that the elites. Well, I mean, they're just so much more important than us, aren't they?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I'm sorry, you're right.
You're okay. It's okay. It's okay. You can give up beating yourself up on that one, right? And there was something else that you said that I wanted to mention is how happy my children are.
Yeah,
how happy my children are, and home educated children are, and that ties us into bullying. There is no bullying in home educated communities. Now there's always kids squabbling and picking on each other and stuff, right? But what you have in school is 30, perhaps 40 same-age children compelled to be with each other, engage in activities that they have no interest in, being told off by adults that they have no relationship with, strangers, right? That doesn't happen anywhere in life, apart from possibly prison or the army. That sort of setup, maybe in the army, right?
Yeah.
Now, we're social mammals. We're the most pro-social of all the mammals. We struggle for status because it's through social connection and status that we access resources. So people revere. Like if I say, look, I wish no ill will to the Queen or anything. I wish no ill will to anybody. But this woman died. Okay, well, plenty of women die.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, you're being disrespectful. No, I'm not going to. They're not. I don't give. They're not.
That is a way of control, though. That is, isn't it? That is another form of control. This is another. Oh, you're being disrespectful. No, I'm not being disrespectful. An old lady I didn't know who was taken all of her life and lived a life of privilege died. I'm not being. Listen, I've had
ladies in Yemen that we don't know that are being bombed on.
This was the point I was trying to make yesterday. I had a live show yesterday on TikTok, and I've never been a royalist. I've never been a royalist. I've never understood why this one family gets so much privilege and so much money. For why? Nobody knows.
I'll tell you. Can I tell you?
But, sorry, carry on.
I can tell you, right? Right?
Go on.
Because this is what they accomplished. This is what the Queen accomplished. She led a people to freedom like Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela. She fought against racial segregation like Nelson Mandela. She discovered the structure of DNA like Watson Crick. She rose from obscurity to give the world rock and roll. She rose from nothing to become an elite boxer and then sacrificed her career because she stood for peace and against the war in Vietnam. That's what she's accomplished. You're going to tell me she was born into privilege? She does what I do. She does what I do. She goes into homes and confronts pedophiles and says to them, no, I don't believe you. You don't get to be with kids. She does that. She's, with all the pedophiles that she ever meets and stuff, she talks straight to them, I'm sure.
But have you noticed how since she died, everybody's on one side or another, especially if you go on Twitter like I do and watch the shit flinging over there. Everybody'd like to opposing sides of monkey tribes just flinging shit at each other. It's kind of incredible to watch. But you've got basically either the blue ticks on the ITV and the BBC gushing over it, and that's all you're going to talk about is how wonderful they are. None of them on the TV have talked about Princess Diana and how she was treated by the royal family, have they? Because it's not decorum to talk about that. It's not decorum to talk about Charles and Diana and how, and you certainly can't speak about anything untoward with regards to Diana and how she died. You can't certainly ask any questions about that because then you're a conspiracy theorist. It really is a way of controlling the way we think, because if you oppose what they're doing, they are going way overboard. And then likewise, you've got people on the other side who just are bringing up all sorts of stuff as if the Queen was some sort of absolute demonic creature. When really, when you look at her, she wasn't responsible for anything that really the British Empire did, not her anyway.
A human being, like the 96.
Exactly. But it's
in Yemen.
it's like you said, it's somebody who's led a life of privilege, who's, you know, led a life of this privilege on the back of a British Empire and a colonial history, which has destroyed the lives and civilizations, you know, in the past. And it's I can't stand the way they are ramming it down everybody's throat right now. I can't stand it, especially when if you talk to normal people. I mean, I had a conversation with my mom yesterday, and we were talking about, I said, what they're going to do about all the banknotes with all the Queen's face on and the coins. And she said, I don't care, as long as I don't put fucking Camilla on it, I just don't give a shit. You know, but that's what normal people, that's how they talk. They just don't talk like this in this elite sphere they've created for themselves. It's like they are living in a different world, these people who are getting the big bucks on TV and in Parliament, etc.
Yeah. Well, we have been dumbed down. School does dumb us down. The thing, I mean, I've never looked into what happened with Diane and stuff, right? Because I don't really look into the.
I'm certain. I will tell you. I can. This is my opinion. Is I am certain she was killed.
Right.
I'm certain of it.
I don't find that too hard to believe. Right. We've read about these intrigues that happened with kings and queens before. Why not now? Still human beings, right? But here's what I do know. I do know that the King of England now was very close friends with Jimmy Savile.
Yes.
I knew about Jimmy Savile in 1983. I was working with a very small charity that counsels survivors of incest.
Okay.
I was 18, 19 years old. And the head of, and that's because this girl that I was going out with at the time told me what was being done to her by her uncle. So I looked for help for her, right? And the head of the charity told me, Jimmy Savile's a pedophile, a notorious pedophile. He said to me, he's so well connected, nobody can touch him. So I knew about this so other people would have known. We know other people would have known.
Well, yeah, there's that recording, isn't there, of the guy from, is it Sid Vicious? What's his name? Not Sid Vicious, the other guy.
Rotten.
Johnny Rotten. And he was, I think it was 79. He was recorded as it was being interviewed by the BBC. And he said, we all know about Jimmy Savile, don't we? Yeah. You know, and they never aired that recording. Not only did they never air the recording, but he was banned from the BBC from ever appearing on there again. And they hid that recording for years. It didn't come out until decades later. I think he was on Piers Morgan. And you can hear it on Piers Morgan did a live stories with Johnny Rotten, and it came out then. They actually aired the recording. But that was him in 1979, openly calling Jimmy Savile a pedophile and saying, yeah, you all know, and you're all hiding it, and they hid the recording from public view. This is not conspiracy theory. No. This is the truth.
Yep. No.
But they won't talk about this on the fucking TV, will they?
No. But like you said, with the internet, it's kind of slipped out because there's that. The king was very close friends with Jimmy Savile, a notorious pedophile. And then also how the Queen paid off £12 million so that her other son wouldn't have to face justice for having sex with a minor. Now,
did you see The Godfather, Rich? Have you seen The Godfather?
Many years ago. I don't remember it much.
There's a I kind of feel like the royal family is kind of like the mafia. And I kind of have it like, there's a thought in my mind, like, at any point over the last 2 years, like, as Prince Charles, knowing that he's going to become a king at some stage and knowing everything that's gone on with Prince Andrew, has there been a stage over the last couple of years where Prince Charles has said to people in the family, listen, nobody touches Fredo while my mother is alive?
No, I do think of them. They're all gangsters.
Yeah.
All gangsters. Biden and his crew, the Tories are gangsters, the European Union are gangsters, Putin's a gangster. They're all struggling for turf. The WEF are gangsters, right? They're all fighting over turf, and we're the innocent bystanders and the collateral, right? You know. So I do think of it that way. The other thing I want to say something on your channel, because this may be new for people, and you may already know this, right? But Hunter Biden definitely is the same practices as Jimmy Savile, and also Joe Biden.
I've seen their text messages that came from that laptop and emails from the laptop, and there are questions from people within Biden's own family about his conduct towards, I think it was one of his nieces. Is that correct, Rich?
Yep. Yep.
These are allegations from people within his own family.
There is worse material regarding children on his laptop.
Yeah.
Right?
And let's remember, Ghislaine Maxwell has gone to prison for trafficking children to nobody.
Yes. That's a very good point.
I want to say this for people on your channel, just in case they're not aware. But there's a reason that children were there's a reason that nobody Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein trafficked children to have been prosecuted, and that's because those people are in government.
Yeah,
and they're in government positions. Do you know obviously who Bill Barr is, don't you, Rich? He was Donald Trump's Attorney General. He was the guy who basically was put in charge of Crossfire Hurricane and the Russiagate, whatever it was. Yeah. And it was all he did nothing as Attorney General. He did absolutely nothing. He was toothless. And this is why I keep saying to people who are Trump supporters, he's a heel, this guy. He's part of this theatre that's going on, Trump is. Do you know who Bill Barr's dad was? The person who gave Jeffrey Epstein his first job as a teacher at a girls' school. That's Bill Barr's dad. And when Bill Barr's dad left that school under a cloud of controversy, I think like 2 weeks later, Jeffrey Epstein left.
Wow.
They're like a box of rats. They are climbing all over each other, these people are.
Yeah. I was once in a meeting as a social worker with this guy who's on the sex offenders register, and he's being monitored by a police officer from a particular unit, and their job is to monitor pedophiles. And at this meeting in an office in a local authority somewhere, there was a glance that I caught between the pedophile and the police officer. And I thought, oh, that's not right. There's something going on. Like
something on there between them.
Some sort of exchange, right? And one of the things that I know, or that I believe to be true, is pedophiles hang out with each other. Why would someone who's not a pedophile hang out with a pedophile? Why would a pedophile hang out with someone who's not a pedophile?
This is true. Birds of a feather.
Would get exposed, and then the non-pedophile is no good to the pedophile because they're not going to be able to access any children. And
to go back to and to tie this into what you were saying about Jimmy Savile, and you knowing in 83 you said, 1983, about and it was an open secret back then.
Yeah.
So you've got to imagine the amount of people who knew and either did nothing about it and looked the other way, or facilitated it and helped it, must have been in the thousands.
Yep.
Mustn't it?
And one of them is the king.
And one of them is the new king of England.
Yeah. But
somebody who regularly had, there were documents of letters going back and forth between Jimmy Savile and King Charles, as he's now called.
Yeah. But that, like you said, is getting leaked out because of the internet, right? Because it's hard to suppress that because of the decentralized nature. So, what frees up censorship is decentralization. What home education is decentralized education. We came in with crypto about decentralization. Now, there's something particular that I want to test out with you, right? And bring to your channel. And you and I've never spoken to you about this, right? But a few months ago, I started looking into the whole climate change agenda.
Yeah.
Now, I live in the part of Britain where there's, don't say the location, right? Where there's the only Green MP. And I have voted Green in the past when they were an anti-war party. I doubt very much I'd ever vote Green again. And I've been looking at what's really, really the cause of, they don't call it global warming anymore because the planet isn't warming.
Okay.
They changed it to climate change. So here's what happens. Here's how, in England, on a regular basis, there are temperature fluctuations of 10 degrees every day. 10 degrees C, every day. Do you know that?
Well, between the minimum and the maximum temperature, yeah.
Yeah, and do you know why it happens?
Well, the sun goes in.
No, that's all rubbish. You don't look at it from the global climate change agenda.
It becomes nighttime.
No. What happens, what causes the temperature to rise in the morning is the carbon dioxide comes out of bed, warms up the planet, and then at night the carbon dioxide goes away to sleep and it all cools down. That's what they would have us believe, that it's all to do with carbon dioxide. Here's what's omitted from the discourse. These are the facts. I was being a bit facetious there, right?
Yeah, okay.
I
kind of got it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll follow.
Here's what's omitted and censored from the discourse, because what we got is this complex dynamic system, the Earth's climate, being reduced to a fairly simple linear relationship with greenhouse gases, principally carbon dioxide. Okay, well, tell me about the sun. What impact does that have on the climate? What about solar cycles? What about solar radiation? What about cosmic radiation? Yeah. What about earthquakes and volcanoes? What about sea currents? What about the intercontinental transport zone? Mm-hmm. What about the effects of the moon? Mm-hmm. What about the effects of the outer planets? Mm-hmm. What about the magnetosphere?
Okay.
How come all of those are excluded from the discourse? How come there's nothing about how they may interplay with greenhouse gases? And anybody who says it's anything like that is censored. YouTube now has a policy that if you challenge the climate change orthodoxy, you'll be shadow banned or deleted.
Okay. I used to be a climate change denier.
What do you mean deny? I don't deny climate
change.
No,
I say climate change, a man-made climate change denier. What I used to say is that the Earth's climate has warmed up and cooled down throughout history. It is natural for Mother Earth to be doing this. We are minuscule when it comes to the planet. If you actually, I subscribe to one of my favorite comedians of all time is George Carlin. There's a great bit that he does about climate change and saving the planet, how the Earth will shake us off like a bad case of the fleas. And then it will carry on. There's no way we're going to save the planet. The planet doesn't need to be saved. The planet has been here for billions of years and will be here for long after we have gone. It's us that are screwed. The planet's fine. Yeah. This is kind of the way I always thought. And then one day I decided, right, okay, I'm going to do a course in physics because I was bored and in physics interests me. And the first question, and I did it through the Open University. And for anybody at home in the UK who, does want to take and doesn't want to listen to me and Rich and talk about homeschooling and what have you, or wants to take it to a degree where, well, maybe I can take a doctorate. I did half a course in physics through the Open University, and the government paid me to do it. They gave me £262 for books and everything and said, yeah, okay, do it. I never completed the course because certain things happened in my life that stopped that happening, but I can go back to it at any point. So if ever you do want a further education, I suggest the Open University is a great thing to do. Anyway, that's an aside. The first question on this Open University course, Physics S102, I think it was about climate change and how man-made use of fossil fuels is driving climate change. Now, all I will say is this: for anybody who is confused as to what and doesn't believe anything that doesn't believe what's being told to them, and I totally get that, and I totally support the fact that you're asking questions, as I support you in what you're saying. Then there's a lot of variables here that are not necessarily being looked at, and this is one of the reasons why mapping climate models is just so difficult to be able to predict, because you've got all these variables. But as I understand it, if you speak to the smart scientists, and I have done this, I've had Peter Kalmus on my project, and Peter Kalmus is a NASA scientist. So Peter Kalmus, like, if somebody came up to Peter Kalmus and said, hi, I'm a rocket scientist, he'd be like, oh, I'm a brain surgeon, rather. He'd be like, oh, bless, he's a brain surgeon. This is one of the smartest people on the planet. It's to do with the carbon cycle and to do with the fact that we're releasing carbon into the atmosphere at a rate that has never happened in history. And if you actually look back there was a question on this course and I'm not signing on to any of this, and I'm not saying it's absolutely 100% certain, and I'm not saying if you're a climate denier, listen, you're right to be skeptic about everything that you're being told. You're correct about this. But carbon traps heat. That's scientific fact. the way the molecule is constructed, carbon dioxide traps heat, and we're releasing it into the atmosphere at a rate that hasn't happened before. And if you go back in the Earth's, the North Pole, sort of like the ice, you can drill down through the ice and get like a rod of ice out of the ground. And you can go down that ice literally 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 4,000. You can go down like that and map how much carbon was in the atmosphere at periods where the Earth has warmed up or cooled down in the past. And you have to do a mathematical, this question at the beginning of the Open University course on physics, you have to do a mathematical equation, and it's quite complicated. And the equation is basically go to these documents, pull out this, data from years ago when the Earth was warming up, and extrapolate, if we carry on at the rate that we're doing at the moment and pumping the carbon in the atmosphere, what centigrade Celsius increase will we see by the end of the century? My paper was late because I was like, this is wrong. This is wrong. They're saying that if we go above 2 degrees C, that will be the end of the planet and the seas will roar and the mountains will crumble. Well, I was getting 11 degrees C, mate. So, yeah, I understand that there's a lot of BS out there. There are conspiracy theories out there with this, but also we've got to be honest with each other and just say nobody really knows the answer. However, I defer to these smart guys like Peter Kalmus and Brian.
Okay, I'm going to draw parallels, right?
Okay.
I'm going to draw parallels with the whole coronavirus and vaccine conversation.
Okay.
So one of the things that got me suspicious, I mean, I bought into the lockdowns for the first couple of months, and then I thought, why am I just buying what governments and corporates are saying without questioning it? Why am I just accepting what they're saying? And then I can say the same thing to the climate change agenda. Why am I just accepting? This is not grassroots. Yeah. I'm from Pakistan. And I've read stuff. What's important to people in the third world is equity, pollution, habitat destruction.
Yeah.
Who's pushing the climate change agenda? Corporates and governments. When in history have they ever been on the side of people? Why are they pushing it so much? Then there's the issue of experts. I don't have much truck for experts because experts really are bought and sold. David Bellamy, you don't see him on TV anymore. I mean, before he died, because he questioned the climate change orthodoxy. And then he disappeared. He was disappeared. Just like Johnny Rotten talking about Jimmy Savile. During the whole coronavirus lockdown, that whole thing, ivermectin was smeared, deplatformed, decensored. So you had Dr. Hillary and you had Chris Whitty and you had Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx all going on TV, injections. I don't call them vaccines, injections, safe and effective. What's omitted from the discourse, what's censored and deplatformed, Dr. McCullough, Dr. Robert Malone, who has 7 or 9 patents for the mRNA injection, who's saying, don't take it. All the frontline doctors that deal with people, American frontline doctors, Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Corey, omitted, censored from discourse. Same deal with the climate change agenda. Making a reference to education and how it's controlled by the state, including university syllabuses because of the funding. My daughter goes to school, goes to the local library, reads up on British India, and comes back and shows me the book, and it talks about the Indian mutiny in British India. I say to her, you go read a book in Pakistan on India, and it talks about the First War of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
Same deal. So you go and do a course at a state-subsidized institution, state-funded, corporate-funded, where they say it's this particular agenda which is being promoted by corporates and agendas and governments. Well, okay, what about the sun? Are you really, really saying that the sun has less of an impact than greenhouse gases? And then are you really, really saying that greenhouse gases, that carbon dioxide, which, by the way, is plant food, carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of daylight gives us glucose and oxygen. That's photosynthesis. Mm-hmm. You're saying plant food? Why do farmers buy machines that generate more carbon dioxide to put in their greenhouses because it causes plant growth. What happened in 1540 in Europe before industrialization, when in Europe there was a year-long drought? For 13 months, it didn't rain in Switzerland. Anthropogenic carbon dioxide emitted from our view, smeared, censored.
Yeah, this is that's the thing. See, you and I here,
but there's something else I want to say. We'll bring to your attention, right?
Carry on.
phmpt.org. Everybody, please note this. phmpt.org. This is a website, Public Health Medical Professionals for Transparency. In January of this year, there was a court case in Texas. This charity went to the FDA, said, show us the Pfizer data under Freedom of Information, right? The FDA said no. They made Pfizer a party to the court case. In the end, they said, we'll release it in 75 years. In the end, the judge said, no, you'll release it now. It's publicly available. You can go look at the Pfizer data. How come that's not on The Guardian? How come that's not on the BBC? That those injections are harmful. That's what the Pfizer original data shows. And they hid it from our view because it serves corporate and government interests. Corporate and government interests are promoting carbon dioxide. Why? Because it allows them to micromanage our activities. Duconomy.
It is weird. Just to jump in there on that. It is weird the way that they're trying to get us to fix this problem, because paying 6 pence for a plastic bag is not going to change anything, especially when you can consider the largest polluter on the planet is the United States military. And Greta Thunberg never talks about that, does she?
Yep. Spending all this money to drop bombs, munitions, using hydrocarbons to fly them across to Ukraine and drop bombs on people, or Yemen, or the environmental consequences of the Iraq war. They'll bash Bitcoin. The banks as a media will bash Bitcoin, but they'll never bash the military-industrial complex. But let me give you this metaphor, right?
Carry on.
All right, for you say you want to be optimally healthy, and let's say there are 4 factors at play: genetics, sleep, diet, and exercise or activity. Supposing all you do is you do loads and loads of exercise all the time, but you pay no attention to your diet, you eat rubbish, you never get enough sleep, and you've got really poor genetics, are you going to be healthy?
You're going to be in a hospital, is where you're going to be.
Right. Well, let's look at the other one, right? Supposing you've got really great genetics, but you don't pay any attention to your sleep, you don't get enough sleep, you eat rubbish, and you're a slob.
You'll be married to Johnny Depp.
Well, you'd probably be obese and married to Johnny Depp, right? And then he may not want to marry you or stay married to you for long, right? Yeah. Or is it an interplay between all 4 of them?
Yeah, it's all 4.
Optimal health, right? Yeah. So how come this complex ecosystem, this dynamic large system, is just reduced to greenhouse gases? Tell me about. Here's what's happened with the sun. You know, the sun goes through cycles, solar cycles.
Yeah.
And the corona is shrinking because of the cycle that the sun is in, cycle number 25. And what that means is there's more cosmic radiations that would normally be shielded by the sun hitting the Earth, and the magnetosphere is weaker. So there's more cosmic rays hitting the Earth and coming through, and they pass through everything. They pass through our bodies. They hit the molten core, the ferrous core. There's a correlation between cosmic radiation and earthquakes. I'm not saying one causes the other. So then you have earthquakes. So what happens when you have earthquakes? Well, you have undersea volcanoes. That changes the temperature of the sea currents. That changes how heat is transported around the planet. Or you have terrestrial volcanoes that throw up all this dust in the air that occludes the sky. Now, in that example, I'm talking about the relationship between the sun, cosmic radiation, the magnetosphere, the Earth's physical structure, sea currents, and pollutants, volcanic pollutants, as well as volcanic heat. 7 factors. Oh no, forget about them. It's just carbon dioxide. No.
I see your point, Rich. And I do love, we disagree on this. Have you noticed? We actually disagree, but we're having a cordial conversation, and there's no smearing.
Amazing! It's a miracle.
It's incredible, isn't it? Where you can have conversations with people you disagree with and still be friends with them. It's amazing, isn't it?
That's what political activism used to be about, right?
Yeah, you can't do that anymore. There is no debate anymore. This is the way it is. I got to tell you something, mate. I took the jab. I took 2 Pfizer jabs. Yep. I wish I hadn't. Yep. I wish I hadn't.
I wish.
If I had my time over again, I wouldn't do it again. The reason the missus is the same as me as well. We had a real conversation about it before, when they were rolling these jabs out, and when the the coronavirus, the COVID pandemic sort of exploded. We had a conversation about it, and our sort of feeling at the time was, listen, every country on the planet has rang the alarm bell here. Countries that hate each other. Even Russia, China, America, the UK, we're all on the same page here. This is really weird for that to happen. So that's sort of what convinced me that, taking this jab was the best thing. And I remember I've been dying to tell somebody this story, and maybe this is the place. We went on a march. It was one of these freedom marches a couple of years ago when this first all came out. And it's one of the first freedom marches sort of like after lockdown happened. And David Icke was on it. And we were walking in front of David Icke, and me and the missus heard him talking to people. And they were saying to him, what do you think is going to happen, like, with this injection? And he said, oh, within 2 years, people will stop dropping down dead. And me and the missus laughed. We're not laughing now.
Yeah.
What did they put into our bodies? What did they fucking inject us with? Because my missus was having massive problems with her menstrual cycle for about a year and could not lose weight no matter how hard she worked out. It's getting back to normal now, and her cycles she can start losing weight now because her cycle's back to 28 days the way it was. But for about 18 months after her second injection, it totally fucked her up. Who's talking about that on the media? If you talk about that on the media, you're silenced.
So died. It's climate change.
That I can see why you're worried, especially when you actually tie it in with climate change, and you tie that into the whole WEF Great Reset theory. It's worrying, and I get it. It's just
it's not a theory anymore. I can
I'm not saying the Great Reset is a theory, by the way.
But the direction of travel is to get us on biometric IDs. That's what the vaccine passes were for, and that's why they wanted to have the vaccines. Creating this pandemic, this false pandemic, have us injected, have vaccine passes, which is a biometric ID linked to your DNA, in preparation for, and the British government are still funding research into this, for a central bank centralized digital currency that's tied to your biometric ID. So you have a social credit system on steroids where every purchase you make is tracked, your movements are tracked. And how is it ties in with the climate change agenda is the thing about carbon dioxide as a proxy for climate change. It's also a proxy for human activity. I can track with the biometric ID on your person, on your app, where you're going, how much carbon dioxide you're using, how far you're traveling, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I can penalize you. What you're going to have is programmable money. And what that means is they can take money out of your account. They can reduce the value of it. They can stop you buying certain things. And then we are owned. That's the direction of travel. I do have some good news. They're going to fail, right? But that is the whole thing. And I suppose for me as a subject of empire, I know about Tuskegee. Do you know about Tuskegee?
I don't know.
Tuskegee is horrible. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. In the 30s, these medical professionals went to these sharecroppers in Tuskegee, Alabama. Now, sharecroppers are the poorest of the poor, African-American day laborers in cotton fields.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, look, we want to do a health study on you. So do we have your permission? We just want to monitor your health and see how you're doing and give you appropriate treatment. They said, and the men said, okay. So they did this health study, and it ended in 1971 or 1972. And people can look this up, Tuskegee. What they didn't tell these men is that they'd injected them with syphilis and then tracked their decline.
I have heard about this.
Yeah. Death, blindness, disability.
Yeah.
That's what Big Pharma does. And then thalidomide. You and I will know thalidomide.
Yeah.
What they did 4 or 5 years before that was pulled off. 50,000 thalidomide babies in the UK, maybe, or I don't know, my figures may be off, right? So I know about that. Big Pharma is not my friend, just like the military industrial complex is not my friend. $35 billion worth of profit for Pfizer buys a lot of influence. And then you said all these countries and stuff have, well, there's 5 nations that didn't, and they had their presidents die. Tanzania, Haiti, and Burundi, and a couple of other nations I can't remember. They said, we're not having it. Gone. Replaced by a WEF Pfizer lackey. And it is part of a depopulation agenda. They are out to kill us. Genocide is part of the tragically part of the fabric of human history. Holodomor in Ukraine, Khmer Rouge, the genocide in Rwanda, what's happening in Palestine now, what's happening in Yemen, what we've been funding in Yemen. And they talk about useless eaters, they want to get rid of us, the destruction of the supply chain, the deliberate destruction of food production.
Useless eaters?
Yeah, useless eaters.
That's a term I haven't heard before.
It's one of the guys that I suppose is an inspiration for the whole Great Reset or whatever, and also Nouvelle Hariri, who's an advisor to the WEF, talks about how human beings, we don't need so many and we can improve upon them. It's how the elite regard us. The Dutch government wanting to stop 1/3 of their farm production.
Yeah, this is
because of the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen is now dangerous.
Yeah, this is you can see that the direction that this is going in. I mean, it used to be a conspiracy theory that they're doing these things.
It's a conspiracy prophecy.
This is not. This is
conspiracy prophecy.
Prophecy, yeah.
David Icke, Jeff Berwick, Gerald Celente, Vernon Coleman, they are our prophets.
Yeah, what is the thing? What's the difference between conspiracy theory and fact? Well, about 6 months at the moment. That's basically how long it takes. But you can see that this is the and you mentioned CBDCs there. You can see that. Yeah, I saw TikTok the other day, and I'll try to make it my own. But you get, for those people, like, what will this entail? This sort of like digital wallet. Well, imagine you've gone to the pub on a Friday night, and you've had 4 beers, and you've got plenty of coins in your wallet. It's no problem. You've got a job, and then you go up to the bar and, I'll have another beer, please. Sorry, your card's declined. Yep. Do you mean it's declined? Well, apparently you got a work in the morning, so it says that it's best that you have a soft drink. Oh, okay, I'll have a soft drink. All right then. That's the sort of level of control. And then maybe, after you finish the pub, you'll go out and, right, okay, I'll have a burger. Oh no, your card didn't work. Why? Well, you've already had your allocation of CO2 meat for this month. So you can't have a burger. You'll have to have a bean burger or a bug burger or whatever they're talking about. This is the direction we're moving in, isn't it?
It's much, much worse than that. If I want to go to a conference, a Socialist Worker Party conference, I can't make a payment, and the government objects to it, I can't make a payment to them.
So if I wanted to go on a march for Julian Assange, my card wouldn't work on public transport, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're doing that in China.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go on a particular protest with all the surveillance that goes on, link it to your ID, your CBDC, you're penalised.
That is already happening. I can tell you that now. That's already happening over here.
Well,
they're not doing it. You don't need your digital ID for that. They're already, and I've filmed them doing it, at Assange events. I've gone up to the coppers live and gone, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh, we're doing the surveillance." And they're digital IDing their faces.
The CBDC makes it easier. The biometric CBDC makes it easier for the elites, right? Everything is tracked. And where they're moving from is to ban meat. So we're no longer going to eat meat, and we're going to eat bugs. Bugs, by the way, from the little bit of research that I've done, are poisonous. There's a reason why human beings haven't been eating them en masse. And
Southeast Asian countries eat loads of them, don't they?
Yeah, but they're not necessarily. I don't know much about it, and there may be particular types. I know in Islam that there's a certain grasshopper that's halal, but bugs aren't halal. Insects aren't halal, and the shit they're going to give us, it ain't going to be great for us. Nothing. I do not trust them. They are not out acting in my interest. If they were, they'd be asking us what we want. They wouldn't be. There was a swine flu vaccine that was rushed sometime, I think 1976. 50 people died, they pulled it. Yeah, these injections, thousands of people are dying. I got 29 first-hand contacts. Not friends of friends, like your partner, right? I don't know how. I'm talking about first-hand contacts that have been hurt or injured by these. One of them died by these injections.
My second injection, I was fucked for 2 days, mate. I properly had a bad reaction to it. And then, see, the thing that worries me about this digital thing is not just how much the level of control that they've got, but just I know how useless they are and how they cock things up all the time. I mean, my second jab wasn't recorded at the doctors. It was recorded at the doctors and at the place I got the jab, but it wasn't recorded on the app. It wasn't updated. Now, I've been at my doctors ever since I was born. I've been at the same doctors, and I've got a name that is quintessentially English, Gordon Dimmack. There's one of him, and he's obviously white, and he's been in the same place since he was a kid, and it should be really easy to update my stuff. But I didn't check it and couldn't get on a plane, got stuck at the airport, had to redo my whole holiday and everything. It was a nightmare. I felt so terrible because I'd cocked my missus's holiday up.
Yeah.
But my name's Gordon Dimmack, and I've had the same doctor since I was a kid. How many times have they cocked up in the same way for a guy called Mohammed? You know?
Yeah, somebody
it's going to be much. So if they've done it once, do you see what I mean? They're going to mess it up for other people.
They're going to mess it up. It's going to be prone to hacks, and it's not going to work. It isn't going to work.
Well, their track and trace thing did it?
No.
It's a similar thing.
Work. It'll get hacked. It'll get attacked from within that people object to it as well. So the Great Reset will fail. It'll cause a lot of damage. It'll cause even more damage than it has, right? The other thing that I think will fail is because of monetary reasons and to do with commodities. Because there's something else that I've been looking at and considering that I want to bring, right?
Okay.
Which is the complete con that renewable energy is. Now, I have solar panels. I'm on my second Prius. We have thought about getting a full electric vehicle, and we haven't. And we're definitely not going to now.
Why not?
Okay. A Prius, and I'm assuming here, a Prius has 1 ounce of silver in it.
Yeah.
Assuming that all electric vehicles have 1 ounce of silver. Solar panels have silver in them. They also have silica and other compounds and stuff, right? Yeah. Supposing the government were to promote, not necessarily subsidize, everybody gets solar panels, and everybody has solar panels, what would that do to the price of silver?
The price of silver would go through the roof, obviously.
What would that do to the poor?
How do you mean, what would that do to the poor?
How are they going to afford solar panels? They won't have energy. And I'm just talking about Britain. What if in Europe they had to do this similar drive for solar panels?
Well, this is why you need the all. I mean, this is why you kind of need the all of the above approach to energy as a country that we've so. I mean, the Tories have been saying they've got this all of the above approach, but no, they haven't. They've got a fracking approach. That's what it is.
No, not even that. What we've got is a fake Tory WEF party that's promoting WEF policies.
I think that's the case, mate. I do. Because if you actually look at the energy sector of this country, and I mean, and you think that, okay, so it is the real terrible thing that they're saying it is going to be climate change, way more would have been done. And, you know, this is why you need wind as well as, and let me tell you something. Do you know what I think, honestly, Rich, you'll be amazed at this. You know what I think is the most, is the best thing that we could do right now, energy-wise, the best way we could run the country? Nuclear. That's the cleanest energy we've got. That's by far the cleanest energy. And all you Greenpeace people going, no nukes, terrible Sellafield and what have you. And look at what happened at Fukushima, and look at what happened. How many people died?
Have you looked at thorium? Thorium.
What's thorium?
Thorium is even safer than uranium for nuclear energy. Okay. It's way more abundant. And when there's a thorium, I've looked into a little bit of it, right? When there's an accident at a thorium power station, thorium just shuts down. It stops reacting.
Well, that's fantastic. That's fail-safe almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
I honestly...
It has a half-life of 500 years, not 10,000 years like uranium. Thorium in nuclear reactors.
All of the smarty pants people that I read, and all of the people who are trying to figure things out and what's the best way forward, are all saying the same thing with regards to green energy. The greenest energy that we've got is nuclear, and probably the safest for us going forward. And we do need this all of the above approach. And I feel as though the eco-mentalists, as some people call them, are becoming a bit of they're getting in their own way with nuclear. It's not I don't think it's the disastrous thing that you're making it out to be. How many people have ever died from a nuclear explosion?
And the technology's moved on. And the other thing about renewable energy, actually, no, what the WEF and the Green Party, well, not so much the Green Party, what the governments and the corporations, WEF, aren't talking about is pollution, habitat destruction. All they're talking about is reducing carbon dioxide, which is not a pollutant. It's part of the life cycle of plants. It's plant food. It's not a pollutant. It's not toxic. Neither is nitrogen. I remember reading in my history book something when the Romans came to Britain. It was so warm in Britain that there were lions or something. We used to have lions and hyenas and hippopotamus.
I think so.
In Europe, it used to be that warm. And do you know what happens when you have temperatures that warm? Plants grow.
Yeah, I know, and I know, but you can't simplify it down to like that.
Oh, but they have. But wait a minute, they have this massive system reduced to one variable.
Well, yeah, I agree. I agree with you that it's very difficult to create a climate model because of those variables. But, however, I still hang my hat on carbon dioxide traps heat. And we are pumping, and like I say, we are. If you look back in history and take similar points, because we're actually in a period of we're coming out of an ice age. Actually, if you look at the way the Earth cools and what have you, it goes down into it, and we're actually coming out. The ice age is there. We're actually just here. And it's this level of warming that we're on. We're on the warming trajectory. The point is, and this is the key point that the people like Peter Kalmus will tell you, is that we are warming up faster now than we ever have at any point in that history on that warming. You're correct. There's been cycles, and obviously the Thames used to freeze over and all this sort of thing. And yes, you're correct that the environment does change. But the smarty pants people will say, well, actually, if you look at the points wherever we're coming out of that curve in history, and you dig down into the ice core and you look at the carbon dioxide levels, and then you look at the amount we're heating up now faster than we did in those eras. Okay.
Here's a problem with this argument.
That's the correlation.
Here's a problem with this argument, right? A problem for both of us. Because I had similar with the injections and the lockdowns. I was opposed to the lockdowns.
It's curious that is it's curious the way you're anchoring it to the injections. And you know what? I can see the similarity.
It's the same people saying the same things, and then you've got people on one side pointing to these facts to support that point of view, and you've got other people on the other side pointing to these facts, because I could give you other facts about solar cycles and stuff like that, right? And then it becomes fact versus fact. But actually, who's saying what? And what's being omitted from our view? What's being censored?
And I will tell you right now, Rich, I 100% agree with that argument that you've just given me, and that is bloody worrying because I know just how badly these lying bastards will lie to us.
They do not care for us. They are destroying our food supply, and what they want to do, they want to get the system in place before the financial system collapses, which it is going to do. Because
it's going to collapse. It's going to collapse.
Suicidal sanctions against Russia. I know more about Ukrainian politics than I do about Pakistani politics. I've been tracking them since the Maidan coup in 2014, right? Yeah. Suicidal sanctions against Russia are destroying Europe and the UK. The pound will go down like this.
It already is.
So will the euro. The dollar will rise because the Federal Reserve are going to carry on raising interest rates, and that's going to drain money out of the UK and out of Europe. And in China and Russia, they are dealing in physical gold, and they're buying up the gold from the West. And the gold supplies in the LBMA in London and the COMEX in New York are draining. Physical gold is being drained away and being shipped eastwards. And the banksters in New York and London are keeping the price of gold artificially suppressed by selling what's called naked shorting, selling certificates of gold and silver that aren't backed by gold and silver.
They've done this before, didn't they?
Oh, they've been doing it for years.
This is why they came off the gold standard in the first place, that they were doing this exact thing.
To make the dollar look strong, to make the pound look strong. But here's the problem for us in Britain. Most of our income comes from the City of London, and the part of the largest, if not the largest, is selling gold that we don't have. That will go because the miners, they got a choice of getting a good price for real physical in Shanghai or the Moscow Gold Exchange when that opens, or a suppressed price in London or New York. They'll sell to Moscow and Shanghai. And then there'll be we're really, really screwed in the UK. We're really screwed.
Well, look at how much money they've printed here in America. I mean, if we haven't really seen the inflation at the moment. I think we're going to see hyperinflation when it goes. Where in Venezuela, where like a Big Mac cost you about the equivalent of $400, it's going to be that sort of shit. That's what we're going to have. We're going to have stagflation coupled with hyperinflation. So you're going to have a stagnant economy that's not growing or shrinking, and you're going to have inflation going through the roof. So not only, there's all of this money that they've printed. It's going to be,
and they're going to print for the price cap.
Yeah, and who's going to pay for that? By the way, Rich.
Well, we are.
We are
not because there's going to come a point where we'll just default on the debt. It's just inevitable. The ECB is broke. One of the reasons I voted Brexit is because I knew the ECB was broke. They've had negative interest rates since 2014. Why? Because they got no money. They can't afford to pay interest on their loans.
3 times the size the Fed was in 2008 and twice as leveraged. Yep. That was about 5 years ago. That was the state of the ECB before all the money printing.
Yep.
This is not, we talked about this before. When this goes, it's not going to be pretty, is it?
It's not going to be pretty. And here's what I think there is for people to do. Get educated. Get off the censored platforms. You can stay on them, right? But go explore independent media. I don't talk about them as conspiracy theories. Independent alternative media. Right? Go find out what they're saying. Listen to people you wouldn't normally listen to. Get some Bitcoin. Get some Pirate Chain. Get some gold. Get some silver. Get some food. Get some candles.
Learn how to cook. If you can't learn how to grow your own food, at least learn how to cook your own food using vegetables and potatoes, and go back to the way things were in the 40s and the 50s, where you actually, you grew food in the ground. Find out who your local farmer is, go and get pally with him, learn to grow your own stuff as much as possible, learn to create your own energy as much as possible. I've been looking into some generators for these blackouts that they say are coming, and if they say, there might be, they're going to guarantee that these blackouts happening, especially if they need to keep us under control in the winter, throughout the winter of discontent that we're about to come up to. This is pretty much the only advice I can give people since the lockdown, really, since COVID. I've made a real, if you go and look at my videos from then, I was just so unhealthy compared to how I look now. I had a 36-inch waist. I had a 36-inch waist, and I weighed 14 stone 2. Now I weigh 14 stone 10, and I've got a 32-inch waist.
Wow.
So that's the difference. That's how much I've sorted. And it isn't just getting fit and exercising. And you're going to really need to do this. If you can exercise, start. Because in the coming years, this is how you're going to have to build up your own immune system. And this is how we're going to have to learn to survive by getting back to the basics, because it's going to crash. And when it does, it's going to be disastrous for, well, the unprepared.
Everybody, just like the injection, every single adult in my family, apart from those that live in my house, has had at least one dose. And I have a very large family. Every single person. It breaks my heart.
I wouldn't have another one.
No, of course.
I wouldn't take the booster. There was no point. I couldn't see the point. It's like when all this happened, Rich, I was very careful not to demonize people who weren't taking the vaccine. And you had a lot of people in independent media as well doing just that. And I felt really sad about that, because it's like, hold on a minute, these are the same people who 5 minutes ago you agreed with in that they're lying to us about everything. How can you suddenly now turn on those people because they don't believe the people who have lied to us about everything? They've lied to us about everything our entire life.
Yes.
And now the same people that you agree with on that.
The corporates and governments have lied to us about everything, and they're lying to us about climate change, Gordon.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, Rich,
go check out the Ice Age. Okay, go check out the Ice Age Farmer. Go look at.
I've got the Ice Age Farmer. I've got the Ice Age Farmer on my
go check out
Telegram thing.
Solar cycles on the NASA website, because the solar cycles, the 11-year cycles, we're in cycle 25, show a cooling. All right, on the NASA website. But the thing about the injections you were saying is, well, one thing you could try. And I did on my video, I interviewed an expert on vitamin D, a scientist who's from Imperial College who studies vitamin D, and a doctor from Northwest England who's used vitamin D in his practice for 40 years. Vitamin D, completely safe. Get your levels right up, even whether or not you've been injected. Get your levels right up.
Mate, go and look at the videos, the live streams I did when COVID hit. You will see I'm telling people, look after your health, get fit, sort your diet out. Get plenty of sun and take vitamin D. I was telling people before anybody was saying anything anywhere. I went out and bought vitamin D supplements and was telling other people to do. The first two things I did were buy a mask, because I didn't know at the time. I didn't know how nobody knew anything. So it's like, buy a mask, that's sensible, and get some vitamin D tablets and sort out your health. Go running, get your health sorted, and sort out your diet. And it's weird, isn't it? Those 4 things that I did. They're all saying what now was the best thing that you could do. But back then, they weren't talking about any of them.
Well, the mainstream, the corporates and the governments and the mainstream media weren't, but the conspiracy prophets were. The conspiracy prophets, like Dr.
Well, I didn't. I'm glad I didn't demonize any of them. I didn't, and and if ever I said anything derogatory about anybody who wasn't, I'm sure I didn't. But
I can get that. I can completely get it.
But
it's funny for me, right? Because everybody forgot about my body, my choice.
I know, it's crazy. That's crazy, isn't it?
No longer my body anymore.
The same people who were saying my body, my choice with regards to abortion were saying, no, you've got to get this, and we'll hold you down and jab you in the arm if you don't.
My body, right? And actually, it was very scary for me, because I was like, there's no way I'm having this. There's no, I do not trust the government. I do not trust Big Pharma. There's no way I'm having this. I would rather die. That's how I thought about it. I'm not having it. And then I was concerned if they brought it in at work, how am I going to provide for my family?
They got me. They got me because I've got an elderly mom, and I was like worried about. That's how they got me. That's what really got me over that. Like, okay, because it was like, okay, I look after my mom, and now I look back and just think it didn't stop anybody getting it. It didn't stop the spread of it. It didn't really do anything.
They said it's not going to stop the infection. It'll stop, it's not going to stop you transmitting. Well, why the hell am I taking it? On a personal level, my father, I was really surprised. He was poorly in Pakistan, right? From a road accident. He's a homeopath. He took it. Now, he was in his mid-80s, and his health deteriorated, and he died in February. And I knew his health was going. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, I was trying to get into Pakistan.
Yeah.
And my GP refused to give me a medical exemption because under the British law, I can refuse, as long as I have capacity, which my GP said I have, I can refuse any medical treatment for any reason, rational or otherwise, even if it leads to my own death. And that is a valid medical reason.
Yeah.
And my GP refused to give me an exemption. I spoke to 7 other doctors, including two close friends, and a cousin of mine. And none of them gave me an exemption. What I learned from them was that it was really, really difficult. The government made it so difficult for anybody to get an exemption. One doctor actually got struck off the register because he was giving exemptions. And I finally did manage to find a doctor that gave me an exemption, and I was able to fly into Pakistan.
Okay.
But that was in June. My father had died.
What do you think about what's going on over there at the moment, Rich?
God.
An area the size of the UK is underwater.
Yeah, I've done so I don't know much. The flooding is just awful. I've done a few videos on the political scene in Pakistan. I know more about that. And I could.
Was it a coup?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've done videos. It's interesting. I haven't seen any of your videos, but I've done videos, and I'm certain that this was a soft coup by America getting rid of Imran Khan.
Yeah,
he was going to get gas from Russia, wasn't it?
So these are the crimes that Imran Khan committed. He made a deal with Russia for gas and grain, which was very beneficial to Pakistan, for the Pakistani people. He also said that there should be a peaceful negotiated settlement with the Ukraine-Russian conflict. Terrible, terrible thing to say.
I know.
Right? But there's a little bit more about him, which was they did lockdowns in Pakistan, but very, very small lockdowns. It wasn't like they locked down all of Lahore, just this little district or this little district. And he refused to do anything else. And because he said, look, how are the poor going to survive? And then it got to a point where nobody was doing it. They weren't doing any lockdowns at all. So there was that. And then he's building bridges with Russia. India has traditionally been closer to Russia.
Yeah.
And Pakistan's been closer to China. Now, for people in your channel who don't know, right, this is the deal with Pakistan. It is the 5th most populous nation in the world, almost 250 million people. It is the 2nd most populous Muslim nation in the world after Indonesia. It's the only Muslim nation with nuclear weapons. It's on the border of Afghanistan, China, Iran, and access to the Middle East via sea. And it has a very large nuclear weaponry, a hostile neighbor.
Next door, yeah.
We're also with nuclear weapons, right? With which it's had 3 wars. So, and it's also served as an outpost of the United States military. It's almost like the Pakistani army is a foreign garrison of the US military because of the funding, because of the way that it was used to supply weapons to the Mujahideen when the Soviet Union were occupying Afghanistan, and then also because of the war against Afghanistan later on against the Taliban. And then there's a risk that it's going to get closer to China and Russia, because it's already got close ties with China and close ties with Russia. You can't be having that. You can't be leaving the wagon or whatever it is the term of phrase is, right? The ranch. You got to stay in the fold of the US because they don't tolerate that. So here's what happened. Now I have a cousin who worked in the Imran Khan's administration. He was managing a particular project. He told me stuff. There's a journalist I've interviewed who told me stuff. There's stuff I've read in the Pakistani media about what's happened. So 2 diplomats, one of them called Donald Yu, an American diplomat, and another turn up in Pakistan with about $350 million in cash. They start having meetings with MNAs, members of the National Assembly, members of Parliament, one-to-one meetings, and they're offering them between $1 million and $1.5 million in bribes, buying their votes from the coalition.
What I heard was it was almost like a revolving door of government officials and journalists going in America's consulate and out for about a week before this happened. That's what I heard was going on over there at the time.
Yep. You know that revolving door, that spinning, right?
Yeah.
There's
like
yeah. You know, people who spin is called lota, right? So they're lotas. Lota is also the watering can that Muslims use to perform their ablutions.
Okay.
So it depends which what you're referring to when they get referred to as Lord.
Brilliant.
This is what I wash my arse with.
Brilliant.
People that just burn, right?
Sorry, you were saying, carry on.
Anyway, so the coalition members of Imran Khan's government, plus members of his party who were opposed to him anyway, a bit like New Labour, you know, the Starmerites and the Blairites within Labour instigated a coup against Corbyn. They did the same with Imran Khan. So then what happened was there was no confidence vote, and he lost. I think PTI, his party, boycotted the vote. So that was it. And then what Imran Khan did was his party did, okay, we're going to resign en masse. We resign. But the speaker refused to accept the resignations, which meant the parliament remained quora and elections couldn't be called. He's now accepting them in batches. There's elections, I think, September the 24th for 9 seats. And what's happened since then and now is there's been PTI has taken control of Punjab, the richest, most populous province, and where the army is stationed, and they defeated the opposition like crazy. They won 16 of the 24 seats or something like that, right? So they're in power in the Punjab province. They're already in power in, I forget the new name of the province, Pakhtunwala or something. Used to be NWFP. And they won a mayoral election in Karachi where the PTI candidate got 29,000 votes. And the opposition got, I think, 13,000. My numbers may be incorrect, but the ratios are like that. And now they're on this campaign to try and, like what they're trying, the DNC are trying to do with Trump. You've got an incredibly unpopular administration facing an incredibly popular opposition that they have no answer to.
Yeah.
So they're trying to delegitimize him, stop him from running. He gave a speech at a rally a few weeks ago, and what he said led to him being charged with under the Terrorism Act. And do you know what he said?
Go on.
He made reference to an advisor of the PTI who was arrested by the police with the security services and tortured and denied medical treatment and medical examination. He said, we are going to sue. I'm going to take a court case against the Deputy Inspector General of that police force, the Inspector General, and the judge that signed that warrant. I'm going to take them to court. That now constitutes terrorism. That's what he said. So those are the charges that he's up against. The government have shut down opposition channels. Like
Ukraine.
Like Ukraine, that's right, that fabulous democracy Ukraine.
Yeah, that fabulous democracy Ukraine that doesn't allow any opposition parties or any media that's critical or any Russian speakers in the Donbass area. You can't speak Russian now. No, that wonderful democracy Ukraine, we've got to fight for them, and you're going to have to pay with your heating this winter.
Yes, that'll work.
So, carry on.
And who's doing it? So I did this fabulous interview with this Pakistani journalist, Munib Ahmed, and he said on the day that the new prime minister was inducted as a prime minister, he also had to appear in court. 40, I think something like 14 of the 24 cabinet members are on charges ranging from murder, extortion, land grabs, kidnapping, Lord knows what, right? I mean, Boris Johnson, he's an amateur compared to this bunch of crooks. And it's being shored up by the army because the army is reliant, and I would say even owned, by the US military.
It's pretty much just a vassal army of America. That's pretty much where it takes its orders from, Pakistan Army.
And then with the floods, what we've got is a third of farmland, third underwater. You can have inflation going through the roof because they got no food. The food prices, I saw something last week, gone up 500%. Grain or something like that, right? A staple in the last week. So you're going to have an incredibly restive, hungry population and a very young population with very high unemployment, made worse by this. It's not good. It's just not good.
It's terrible. It really is. It's terrible. I've been keeping an eye on close events since what happened to Imran Khan, and he was ousted in that coup. And I've been keeping an eye, and it's just gone from bad to worse to terrible to, oh my God, look at the devastation. And yeah, it's awful, mate. It really is.
It is awful. We are going to go through a turbulent period pretty much all over the world.
Yeah.
But on the other side of this, because what the WF are doing with their Great Reset, it's anti-human. It's anti-nature.
So I'm conflicted by it. I'm conflicted by it. And I was talking to my mate Steve Poikinen on from Slow News Day the other day about it. And I'm conflicted. So, you know, I kind of want a great reset. You know, if there was a button I could press that would collapse the entire final, you know, in Rick and Morty, if he turns the dollar to a zero and everything goes to shit, if I could do that, it would like, where's the button? Let me press the button. I'll do it now, because I want it all to collapse, because it's just so unfit for purpose. But you've got to be careful what happens when it collapses, because whenever something like that collapses, it creates a power vacuum, doesn't it? And if the same people occupy that same space, we're going to get the same shit out of this when we come out of it from the other side, aren't we?
Yeah, well, yes and no-ish, because I think it has a lot to do with sound money versus fractional reserve banking. And I did a whole video about that, right? But what we have is fractional reserve banking. We have unsound money. It's fraudulent. It robs us of our energy and our labor, devalues our time. And inevitably, it always resets. 3,500 fractional reserve fiat currency systems have collapsed.
They've all gone to zero.
They've all gone to, gold and silver never have. Gold and silver have never gone to zero. And maybe Bitcoin won't either.
I don't think Bitcoin will.
Fingers crossed.
I don't think it will. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's new, right? It's new. We just don't know. It's untested.
It's
but
digital
gold and silver never have. Gold and silver never, ever have gone to zero. And so we are going to have a great reset anyway. But this one...
That's what I mean. Yeah.
The WEF, what the WEF want is a form of techno-feudalism. We will eat bugs, own nothing, and be happy. Klaus Schwab will be happier because he will get stake and own everything.
Yeah, he'll get stake and be able to fly around on his private plane everywhere and to his island.
But global warming, that's the other thing. The hypocrisy.
I know.
The hypocrisy.
I know. Do you remember the G7 last year when they all flew there? And it was
a lie.
It was, honestly, it was laughable. It was laughable.
After a while, I stopped doing any restrictions with regards to the lockdown and everything, right? I'm in good health. I exercise. I've been high fat, low carb for 10 years, right? I'm happily married. I'm in good health. I stopped doing any of the restrictions after a couple of months. I didn't die. I got COVID and then I recovered.
Yeah.
Right. And what I kept seeing was the hypocrisy. So at the same time, the government, the mainstream media, and the corporations saying, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. One rule for us, another for them. It's the same deal with the climate change agenda. One rule for us, another for them. As they're telling us, in both instances, they're telling us how to order our lives, including micromanaging the minutiae of our life. Whether I can go and visit my friend in a consensual agreement, whether I can go and visit my mother-in-law, whether I'm allowed to drive to go and see my mother-in-law. It justifies their micromanagement of our activity while they go and do whatever they want. They don't wear masks and they fly around in private jets because they got exemptions from climate tax levies.
Many of them were probably flying their private jets to Epstein's Island, let's face it.
Yeah. Oh, and was it Al Gore, Barack Obama, all of these advocates of climate change, they've all bought seafront houses?
Yeah, and Obama opened the Arctic up to drilling twice.
Yeah, come on.
I mean, I do understand what you're talking about there. There's a lot of hypocrisy. Yeah, I mean,
and the hypocrisy.
I think you can cover that hypocrisy with just, all right, maybe they're just greedy bastards, aren't they? Okay.
They are greedy bastards, but they're greedy controlling bastards, and they're using it to control us. There's a pattern, domestic abuse, right? Supposing you and I are in a relationship, and I'm an abusive partner. I'm going to tell you what you can wear. I'm going to tell you where you can grow. I'm going to manage your money. I'm going to tell you what you're allowed to do. Well, that's what the government are doing with us using climate change. It's what they did with us with lockdowns. This is what you can do. This is where you can go. This is how you can spend your money. I'll penalize you if you don't obey. That's an abusive relationship.
It was hilarious the way I remember watching one of these things that they did with Boris and Chris Whitty and whatever, one of these things, and you know, the whole 15 minutes they were up there doing this address to the nation on the state of the COVID epidemic. They were like, right, okay, what we need to make sure, and all the scientists were on the same page, let's not do anything rash. Let's look at the evidence and we'll go forward based on that, okay? And we won't make any rash decisions. And then the next day, literally with that ringing in my ears, I think, hours later, we had the news that they were going to shut pubs at 10 o'clock. And it's like, you've just had a press conference where you're saying, don't do it to people, don't do anything rash, and look at the evidence, and we're going to look at what's going on. And then the government, taking no advisories from the science guys at all, just decide to go, we're going to shut pubs at 10 o'clock. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I remember going to a pub during it, and the whole masks, you had to wear a mask, went from the pub to your seat, and then you could take your mask off, and you could sit there in a crowd in like 50 people. Because
the bug floats.
But as soon as you stood up, you got to put your mask back on. If you went to the toilet, you got to put your mask back on. It was, I just remember thinking, what are you doing?
We are training you. We are training you to allow us to micromanage every single aspect of your life.
Well, they must have been impressed with the results if that was the case. They must have been impressed with the results.
Because we're on to the next thing, which is the climate change agenda. Because here's what doesn't make sense about that, including, I'll go to renewable energy now, right? Where on earth are you going to get the energy from to dig up the silver, to dig up the rare earth metals, to manufacture the silicon products, which are it's an incredibly toxic process. Yeah. How are you going to move and manufacture those products?
But it's also where you're going to get it from.
Well, yeah, hold on. What are you going to use? You're going to use diesel.
Yeah.
And you're going to use diesel. That's what you're going to do.
Incredibly dirty process. Yeah.
Let's say you are never ever going to get from start to the end of the life cycle. You're never ever going to get a return on the energy invested. Renewable energy is not that efficient. It actually it takes more energy to produce it than it will ever give.
I've heard this argument. I've heard this argument recently.
Yeah, including wind turbines. And then what are you going to do? You can't recycle the stuff. It just ends up in landfill. Solar panels, wind turbines. Wind turbines despoil the land. And you can't recycle it. And they never produce the energy that it takes to produce them. And where do you get the minerals from? You get them, 70% of the battery power, the cobalt, comes from Congo, where it's mined by kids as young as 3 years old. Yeah. 3 years old, and the children are sexually and physically abused.
When I said where you're going to get it from, this is what I meant, but this is what I meant.
This is green? This is saving the planet? No, what this is doing is saving the conscience of middle-class twits like myself. You may be a middle-class twit. I don't know, Gordon, but I definitely am, right?
I'm lower class, mate.
Right, I suspected that from your accent, but I didn't want to be rude, right? I'm definitely a middle-class twit, right? I'm the child of graduates. I got to, work as a social worker, I got a degree, right? But to soothe the conscience of middle-class twits like myself who do not examine things in depth and do not dig right in and just believe what we're told by corporate, government, media, which really is owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, and who knows who owns them.
Yeah.
So your climate change politics brought to you by BlackRock.
Well, I mean, like, I'm not convinced one way or the other. I was convinced climate change was a scam, and then I was convinced that man-made climate change was real and it was driving. Now I'm kind of like just trying to get all the information I can and then try and figure it out. I don't, you've just got to keep an open mind on these things, haven't you? Listen to people.
That's right. I got to keep looking as well. Oh, Gordon.
I've had a great time, Mitch. I always have a lovely time talking to you. It's fantastic.
I don't know how long we've been recording for, but we've been on together Zoom for.
It's got to be 2.5 hours, isn't it?
2 hours and 40 minutes. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Marathon, mate. What a great time! I've had a great time.
Really,
I always
really
do
great.
talking to you.
Yes, and what I really appreciate is where we disagree and also where we agree in the back and forth and stuff, discourse, debate. I wanted to, because this is going to go out, right? It's people, please do comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, give us some resources and everything. Follow Gordon on his channels. Follow me. He does amazing stuff on TikTok. So what did you say?
Thanks, mate.
120,000 subscribers on TikTok.
124,000. Yeah.
That's amazing. That is completely amazing.
It goes in spurts as well. So I went to 20,000 like in a week, and then I had a video go viral, and it got me to like 60,000, and then it sort of happens in spurts. But at least on TikTok, I'm getting exposure, even though I'm on an account warning and might lose my account at any time. Hopefully, I won't. And I've got to be really careful what I say. But it is growing on there, and that's pretty much the problem that I've had for the last 4, 5, 6 years since I got that letter from Julian Assange. I was switched off on YouTube, so right. Pretty much TikTok has kind of been a savior to me. And it's also, I was talking to you before we came on about the ease of uploading videos to TikTok and using their live platform and the editing process. You can do it all via your phone, and it's no wonder it's just become so popular. It's going to take over the world, this thing. It really is, if it hasn't already.
Wow. Okay. Well, look, I'm going to have all the links, and you're going to have all the links in our respective channel. Yeah. I'm also going to do a video that's going to be dedicated to you, Gordon.
Thank you, mate.
How to set up a Kepler wallet.
Okay.
We've been talking about Cosmo and Osmos. So I'll do a little video on how to set up a Kepler wallet, and then I'll let you know, and then you can reference that, and then you'll know how to set up a Kepler wallet, and then I'll sort you out with something, okay?
I appreciate that, mate.
All right, you're so welcome. And I'm going to be at the Freedom Demo in London. I'm planning to be there 17th.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I'm not. I know I'm going to be in London, as I said to you I know I'm going to be in London at some time, maybe close to it. So hopefully I'll be able to dovetail both things, and I'll see you down there.
All right. Gordon, it's been really, really great. Everybody, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this. I certainly have.
I had a great time. Thank you, Rich.
All right, all the best. Bye.